themselves, not the label. So I was doing everything, like you say, the backstage passes.
Yeah.
And there's this diary. It's still got all the old bits of paper that I had from that period. But I loved it. It was great in the Texas poster. So it was great for me as an artist because what I always loved about album covers is when you're in this. It was the next phase after the music had done. Your responsibility was then to project this out to the world with images, because that was going to be the first thing you see. So it was really important, and people underestimated it.
Who was responsible for styling what people wore on that album cover?
What's that?
Who was responsible for the styling of what the band wore on that album cover?
Oh, we had a stylist. Grant Matthews did it, but I kind of based it on Michael, because Michael had that leather jacket. He had that little brooch that said "sex" on it, and he had a pair of these pants, like sweatpants with zips up the front. And I just thought, he didn't need a stylist. He looked great.
Yeah.
And the rest of the band, I wanted them to wear dark colours because I wanted to be very graphic. So that was only brief. And I had no idea. I think Tim looked great on it. I thought.
Yeah.
In his own kind of way, the way.
A bit more cowboy.
Huh?
He was a bit more cowboy style, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was. Andrew was terribly self-conscious. So was Gary. Kurt was okay. I think Kurt looked good. Michael, John, and Kurt were the least self-conscious, and Andrew and Tim. That's why I had Tim at that end. But actually, doing that little puzzle up there took a long time. Because even though I had the idea, the actual shapes, because I didn't have a computer, were really important to the balance of it. And I don't know, there was an idiot that posted that thing who corrected the album cover. I found it on the internet, and he was a wanker because he said, the skateboard is not really floating in the air because it's twisted, and I'm like, you know what? Why? You don't know what I was thinking when I did that cover. I wasn't thinking it needs to look like a real skateboard. I was just thinking of those shapes. So yeah, I think they had a stylist, and it was to me, very important that they got a little bit out of that Aussie kind of look, went a little bit more sophisticated, which is why I had the dark colours. Still a bit of rock and roll with the jeans, but they were quite different from Michael when I met them. I know that Listen Like Thieves, they were pretty much the same, but after Listen Like Thieves, Michael started to go off with a different kind of look. So I thought in order for it to be, for people to buy it or believe it, they would have to have consistency to them. But they weren't high. Andrew is the worst person in clothes I've ever seen. He's probably the worst person out of clothes as well. but Tim had a great look. He had his own style. I couldn't deal with Kurt's look. It was a little bit prissy. It was just that tiny little bit too ironed, neat. John was great. Of course, John was the other one. So everything in my mind. And the Good Times, because that song Good Times really said what it was. It was great fun down there. And the band were I think the band were genuinely thrilled. That I'd come to do it. I think that meant more to them than anything. And I think that they were a little bit more weak than Michael. They were a little bit more paranoid, and Murphy could feed into their paranoia. And that continued pretty much until the whole time I knew Michael, because when it came to Live Baby Live, Michael said to me, "You're on your own on this one." He goes, I can't sell me on the cover again because they've been to this stuff." He goes, "You're going to have to deal with that yourself." And I said, "That's fine." But because I put it to him and I said, "Look, is that a picture of Michael Hutchence, or is that a great picture of a rock star standing in front of a stage?" I said, "You've got to look at it like that. If you weren't in the band, would you think that's a great picture? You wouldn't be worried about it with the rest of the band. You'd be going, what a great picture." And I sold that to them. And I actually love that cover. That to me, I think that Live Baby Live was almost as good as the Clash London Calling cover. It had that moment of brilliance, and of course that whole Wembley thing was just, well, little did I realise that was going to be the pinnacle, really.
Well, that's it. It's a pinnacle in one moment, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and it was a brilliant one, and I wish I'd held on to it a little bit longer. But it was when they did a little screening of the of that film in LA, and I just just remember everybody was just like, because you'd seen live shows before, but just for some reason it was just everybody's jaw dropped. So and you know, I do have to give Chris Murphy a lot of credit, because I think Chris Murphy had a plan. I think I kind of like put him off his path for a little bit, but you know, he was happy to see that people really respond to the record, and it was an easy sell because it was so graphic. And there's that picture that I put up of Phil Mortlock, to that picture of me outside Tower Records in LA when they did this display of it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and you had to get longevity. You had to get, so it was going to date, but not too dated in the right way. Not too trendy. So all those things had to come into play. And but I just remember listening to the music and going, "When I had Need Just Not, this is really weird. It's so, like, I hadn't heard anything like it before, so futuristic in a way. After it was like looking into the future." And I still love that record to this day. It still is like, I still think you can put it on and play it anywhere, anytime. It still sounds great. And it was right people. Chris Thomas produced it. Niven and Paula were the engineers in the studio. The whole scene man at record, it's probably like they tell you about a couple of the Stones records or the Beatles or Led Zeppelin. There was a record where it all worked, and a force stronger than man put it all together. Because I honestly think I was going, I don't even know what I'm doing. What am I doing? I just went with the feeling, and it was right. I had a couple of little hiccups on the way, but it all kind of worked itself out, and here we are 25 years later, and I can't believe it still. It hasn't quite eclipsed Bow Wow Wow, but it's definitely one of my most recognised and beloved album covers. You know, and I'm looking at it on my wall, the gatefold, as it should be. When you go online, you always just see the little pack shot. It doesn't look quite the same.
No.
But then, of course, the next thing was, and I was a little peeved about this. Richard Lowenstein completely copied it for the video. Didn't I just saw it and I was like, wow, complimented. But when the MTV Awards came up, I didn't get one mention, and I was a bit upset about that.
Yeah, we discussed this before, because I was quite surprised that they weren't deliberately linked through your involvement. You know, that was a surprise.
No, exactly. And I suddenly came along, and I came in with this very sort of living in London, living in New York, this very sort of international sort of approach towards things, mixed fashion, mix this, and Michael was like that. And so to me it was an easy thing, and you know, he looked great, he was going to be great on stage, he was a great performer, he looked good, he wore clothes really well. It was kind of a no-brainer, and there's not many, I mean, Oasis were like that, Duran have been like that for me, where you have artists that you work with, the consummate artists, like you just have to give them a little lean here and there, but basically they've already got it. And bands these days, they need a lot more work. You know, they don't know, or they just take something without realising what it is they're taking. Not every band, but generally, I find. So, you know, and to watch Michael grow and become a superstar was fantastic. And I have to say that the band was so great because they were inclusive. Everybody that worked on that record was kind of given credit for doing it, and you know, I'd go on the road with them, so they paid for me to go on the road, and they'd say, come out, and I got to share in their success, not quite in the same way as they did, but I certainly got to reap some of the benefits of it, and it was great. It was a fantastic time going on the road when Kid came out, and going to these places and seeing. Yeah, they already had a solid audience and a big fan base here, but just seeing it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it landed in England, because England was the last place. Yeah,
it took forever to take off here.
Yeah, and Michael the band I think got more satisfaction out of that than they did out of America, because England was at sort of that kind of Australian phobia. First of all, we never considered anyone from Australia as being cool, particularly. So it was, I think to them, I think Michael was happy about making it in England and when we stayed in the band than anywhere else, because England had the credibility. Nick Cave was living in England. It was like, it had the credible side to music, whereas America was just the big commercial side to it. So, and I was proud of it too, because by the time when I went to that show, I felt great, because I knew these guys before all these people, and it felt good to be part of that. So yeah, just that one silly little thing. When I look at it now, it looks so straightforward. Was an amazing thing in my life. All the things that happened between now and then. That you know, I've done record covers. I can look around and go, I don't have any feeling about that. I can't remember. You know, I did that Delight cover, and it was kind of funky at the time, but there was nothing in it for me. I just did it, and quite a few. You know, I did Rico Cassick. I did his record cover. I don't know what I did that for, but to get paid. It was an awful record cover, and one or two people, and in Excess in particular, were, yeah, I look at it and it goes, it pushed me where I am today. So that's the importance of it.
Well, I do think some people sort of see success as a career more than they see what you've gained from it personally, in terms of how your life changed and the people that you made, the friendships that you made, and how it took you to living in LA, all those sorts of things. No, it's something you don't really appreciate, that the scope of it can have as an impact on your life, not just as a career.
No, and you know, I just got now beginning to have more and more impact on different people, you know, because the music videos. But that was my first massive hit. I mean, I had sort of, I worked with Iggy Pop and Bob Dylan and a lot of people, but that was my first massive thing. And you know, I wasn't brought in after the first single, and it was like I was at the very beginning of the whole thing. So that was a really important moment. And I think I used all of that to escape what was happening back in New York. And then, the other thing was, I met my girlfriend. I had a girlfriend, Stacey. She's still my friend. She's on Facebook as well. She made a ghastly comment about me being in drag, but I met her and I was crazy about her.
Which sort of drag is that, bearing in mind you were wearing a dress the last few days?
Yeah, I'm going to try separation anxiety. But Stacey, who I kind of fell in love with, I thought she used to go on the New Sensation Cup.